Version 12 relies exclusively on INI files to store settings. It also uses INI files to save data for exporting and importing. To avoid problems with formatting and default characters, when using different regional settings in Windows, version 12 forces all programs to use US-centric settings, as shown in the information on the screen.
Welcome to this tutorial that creates a common user profile that will apply to most of the tutorials that involve example images. This is important because many of the settings affect auto-matching of images and generating valid reports for the AAVSO and Minor Planet Center.
Start the MPO Canopus launcher and select Setup Configuration. It can take several seconds for the form to appear. Only some of the configuration settings are covered in any detail in this tutorial. Since versions 10 and 12 have many common configuration settings, the version 10 MPO Canopus manual remains a valuable resource for this and many other tutorials. You are going to create a new profile with the name Tutorials, which will serve for many other tutorials. Click on the Profile Entry field and type Tutorials and then click the Create button. The settings covered on the Observer tab are critical for auto-matching images and recording the correct date and time for each observation. The longitude and latitude are used to compute UT offsets where required, such as computing the air mass when applying transforms. The UT offset setting has confused many users in the past. This is not based on your computer's clock. It is the offset from the date and time in the FITS header and universal time. If following the FITS standard, the date-arbs keyword in the header is UT, and so the offset in this case is 0. The scope and camera names are mostly for historical record keeping. Both of these fields can display the list of previously defined equipment. Try to use those lookup lists so that entries are consistent. The focal length must be in millimeters. Click the calculator button should you need to convert from inches to millimeters. In this case, assume that no equipment names were imported from version 10, and so there are no items in the telescope and camera drop-down lists. Click the button just to the right of the scope field to display a form where you can add, edit, and delete telescopes in their lookup table. Changing or deleting an existing name does not automatically update records in other tables, for example, the PHSESH table in the photometry database. Click the plus button and enter the name in the active field on the upper table. The bottom table, which is for camera names, is disabled. Click the checkmark button to accept the edit. Click the X button to cancel. To edit a name, click on it in the table and start typing the new name. Use the checkmark and X buttons as before. To delete a name, click on it in the table and click the minus button. Once you have entered one or more names, click on the row in the table with the telescope that you want to use in the profile and then click the OK button. Use the same general steps for the cameras table. Don't be concerned if you don't see any entries in the telescopes tables even if you created some. The disabled telescopes table is disconnected from the settings database at this point. The number of columns and rows, as well as pixel sizes, are based on the working size and are not necessarily the physical size. For example, if the physical pixels are 24 microns, but the images were bin 2 by 2, the correct value would be 48 microns and the row and column counts would be 512. In this case, the images were not binned. Note that pixel sizes are usually given in microns, but they can also be arcseconds. Under the FITS standard, the date and time are for the start of an image. MPO Canopus uses the date time and exposure found in the FITS header to compute and store the mid-time of an image. Should your imaging software record other than the start time, this setting must be modified as needed. The FITS header equinox is a required keyword. Any celestial positions reported in the FITS header must be referenced against the ecliptic pole and equator at this equinox. The ignore object keyword and the FL size options are almost always set to no. They are set to yes when having trouble auto-matching when the program uses the values that it extracts from the FITS header.
The General tab has some miscellaneous global settings, some of which depend on whether the target is an asteroid or a variable star. Set High Precision to No. Set Light Time Correction to Earth Distance. This converts Earth time observations to the UT when the light left the asteroid. Set Period Units to Hours, which is the convention for asteroid rotation periods. Set Default Imaging Scaling to Normal. The scaling can be overridden as needed by any program that displays images. Backups in version 12 are important, so set Auto Backup Enabled to Yes. Set Type to Program. This means only those databases used by the program are backed up. Set Prompt to Yes. This causes a program to display a message as it closes about whether or not you want to do a backup. Set the path to a valid directory, preferably on a different physical drive. Click the button to the right of the field to display a form where you can select an existing directory or create a new one. Set Analysis Data Autosave Enabled to No.
Most of the information on the MPC tab is used to generate an astrometric report to the Minor Planet Center, but it is used at other times. The values shown here are okay for the tutorials, but not for the profiles you create for your use. Do not use the default values for your personal profiles, except for MPC email, unless they say otherwise. Remember that the aperture is given in meters and not in inches or millimeters.
Once you've entered the values, if not already done, click the button to the right of the header name value.
By default, this form should have the same information as the MPC tab, but only if there is an entry in the Astrometry database headers table. If the data don't match, enter tutorials in the header name field if necessary, and make the data match those on the MPC tab. Click the Update button before clicking OK. This saves the data to the headers table. When the form closes, the values on the MPC tab should match those you just saved.
Version 12 allows you to select not only which star catalogs to use, but their priority when selecting stars to be used for photometry and astrometry. This is why the Used switch is not necessarily Yes. You can select custom colors by using the drop-down list in a catalog section. Note that when measuring images, the target is always marked with a bright green aperture and the number 1 comparison star with yellow apertures. You can still use those colors for category plotting if you want. You must use and set the priority to 1 for the catalog you specified on the MPC tab, Atlas in this case. If not, you'll get an error when trying to close or reopen the form. The most important settings here are reverse, east-west, and north-south. For AutoMatch to work, the initial chart generated by the program must come close to matching the scale and orientation of the image. A setting on the Charting Miscellaneous tab is also important in this regard. When the Lonios catalog is plotted, Landolt stars are always plotted using red. The maximum scale difference rarely comes into play. It won't at all if all the other settings that affect the chart generation are correct. Set the maximum angle difference to 95 degrees. This sometimes helps when the images are flipped about one axis and not the other.
Set the chart rotation to 0. The goal of combining this setting with others on this and the Observer tab is to generate a star chart for auto-matching that is close to the scale and orientation of the image.
Set the auto-match star count to 20. This should work in most cases. Set asteroid table to MPC or. If Canopus thinks it's auto-matching to an asteroid, it uses this table to compute the center of the chart that is used in auto-matching. Set default filter to C, meaning observations were made with a clear or no filter. Set default AAVSO filter to CV. This says that a clear filter and V magnitudes were used. Set the AAVSO OBS code to XXX. If you have a code, you would enter it here. Set the default mag band to PR, meaning Pan-STARRS R magnitudes, which are the values in the Atlas catalog and not quite the same as Sloan values. If using APAS or CMC15, those are Sloan GRIZ magnitudes, and so you would choose SR instead. Set default color index to VR. Set the method to derive. This affects how the target magnitude is found using the instrumental magnitude of the targets and the comp stars. Set clipping to 0.5. This affects the measured instrumental magnitudes. You must use the same value, which can be other than 0.5, for all images that are measured using this profile. Otherwise, the derived magnitudes will not be the same depending on the setting. Set saturation to 90. This is the saturation point in percentage when a value exceeds the maximum value allowed by the byte size of the image. Set ignore to false. This prevents using any star or target that has at least one pixel value greater than the saturation level. Set min-comp's SNR to 10. Stars with an SNR less than this value will not be considered when auto-selecting comp stars. Set camera EADU to 2.3. This value must be greater than 0. If you know it, you would enter the actual value for your camera. This also affects derived magnitudes, so, like the clipping value, it must be the same for all images measured when using this profile. The settings on this tab affect the size and appearance of data plots. Set the plotting method to absolute. The y-axis values will be sky or catalog magnitudes and not differentials from a specified 0 point. Set header to show. This shows the session name as the plot header. Set footer to show. This shows the JD 0 point, period, error, and amplitude of the Fourier curve. Set phase angle to show. In addition to the abbreviation for the mag band, the value of G used for phase angle correction and the start-end phase angles are displayed. Should the phase angle reach a maximum or minimum, the middle of the three values is that extreme phase angle. Set MPC style to yes. This assumes the plots will be included in a paper submitted to the Minor Planet Bulletin. Set the two plot sizes to custom, the width to 1024 and height to 675. This is a good size for MPB papers after cropping some unneeded white space.
When saving a plot, the default save dialog path will be set to the plots path. By having a single folder for plots, it will be easier to find them. Click the button to the right of the field to show a Select Directory dialog, where you can select an existing or create a new directory. Website URLs change or go away. You can update the stored values as needed. Right-click on a URL to see the stored value. Assuming you have an internet connection, click the Test button to see if the URL is valid. Click OK to save a changed URL. This concludes the tutorial for creating the tutorials user profile that is used in many other tutorials. Additional tutorials are on the MPO YouTube channel by using the URL on the screen. Please subscribe so that you be notified when new tutorials are available. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to the MPO Software Forum on IO Groups. Please note, you cannot attach files to messages. If necessary, you will be asked to send them offline. Thanks for watching.